Thanks for having me here.
It's so good to see you again. Please formally introduce yourself. Tell everybody where you're based, how old you are, and just share your story today on the HerStory podcast.
Okay. So my name is officially Sandra Beryl Simmons, affectionately known as Sandy, and go under the name of, you might find me under Sandy B to differentiate me a little bit. Wow. I'm in Melbourne, Australia, originally from London. I've been here for many years. I'm 63 years old, almost. I've picked that in a couple of weeks. 62 at the moment. Wow, where to start with my story? I'll go through my life fairly briefly to give you a bit of an overview. When I was 12, I was suddenly told that we were going to go and live in Australia, and I had no idea where that was back in the 60s. I'd done a little bit of geography at school, but wanted to know whether I needed to learn another language.
Wow.
And whilst I speak English, there is another language here, but we fall into it fairly quickly. So, yeah, we came here. It was really difficult, very hard. My father had a heart attack after a couple of months of being here, and my mother ended up in hospital with chest infection, etc. So I took the reins, being the eldest, and my life sort of turned upside down into being a bit of a parent for a while.
Wow.
I was thrust through school very, very quickly. I was going to grammar school in England, so they put me up a couple of years here. I finished school at 16, and have a very old-fashioned father who didn't want me to go to university because girls don't do that. So I ended up doing the good old, reception stenographer type work.
Okay.
And in response to that, I left home at 17.
Oh, wow.
And went back to the UK with my extended family. I missed them dreadfully, as did my mum.
Mm-hmm.
And stayed there for a few years, came back, met somebody, got married, had children. And after about 10 years, realised that this isn't really what I wanted. So my journey, I guess, started when I was that magic age of 33. Where I decided that I wanted something different in life, and I wanted my family to, or my children, to experience things as much as possible, but in a healthy way. So I went on to study nutrition and naturopathy, and I had already been working as a breastfeeding counsellor. I went on to become a lactation consultant, and then I delved into fertility. So I work out at Monash with which is one of our main medical centres here, with a doctor over there and we're both trying to get natural fertility into that zone that's missed from doctor to IVF specialist. We're trying to get this gap filled up with a lot of information. So that's my focus at the moment. I've written one book on preconception. I'm writing the next one on conception at the moment, in between nursing my mum. And many of you might relate to that. Yes. At our age. And just focusing on being in clinic just 2 half days a week, and some online work. I have a few clients overseas, and basically it's really about helping them to see whether they want to have children, because quite often these days people are feeling like they have to.
Yes.
And it's not really their calling, and sorting all that out. So we do a lot of that work if people resonate with what I do. And then if they do decide to, I obviously attract the cases that are a bit difficult. And, we might end up having to have a bit of assistance, but not necessarily total IVF. And, there's a lovely woman right at the moment about to give birth in Singapore who is 44 and had all sorts of trouble. She did IVF a few times. She had multiple miscarriages. And after working with me for 6 months last year, her and her partner decided to go IUI, which is just the assisted part of IVF and fell pregnant straight away, and it's all gone beautifully.
Explain that terminology to us, because I'm pretty sure that there's going to be women who are going to listen to this call who have a friend, who have a daughter, a granddaughter. What does that mean?
Okay, so I guess most of us know what IVF is, where you go the what I call the full hog, and you have your eggs are often taken out maybe a few years before and frozen.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do want to become pregnant, so then what they'll do is they'll artificially use the semen from your partner and artificially impregnate those eggs and then place them back in your body. But for you to be able to accept that, there's a lot of hormone treatment that goes on. It also depends on what's going on for the woman herself. She might have to take quite a few different drugs to prepare her body. And then there's no guarantee that that will actually hold when that egg's replaced back in the body. When we talk about IUI, that's just sort of an assisted type of where you don't really take the drugs very much. There's not many drugs involved, and sometimes it's just a matter of taking one. A very common one is Clomid, some of you may have heard of, and really preparing the body, which is what we do, and it all flows beautifully. So it could be just tweaking those hormones a little bit, especially if someone's a little bit older. So that sort of gives you the difference. It's not as toxic, and in our field, what we're endeavouring to do is to get the message out there that a lot of things can be done naturally. A lot of women don't understand their cycle. But, we all know that we get a period. We all know that we ovulate, that it doesn't necessarily have to be on a particular day, which everybody says it's day 14. And sometimes the apps aren't accurate enough. We need to do a lot of observation and understand exactly what's going on. So,
fantastic. Yeah. That's very, very encouraging to hear. Now, your first book, you talk about post-conception. And for people who are struggling with infertility, there is a lot that you can do before you prepare to have your baby that can help in that fertilization process, correct?
That's exactly right.
It's a good thing. And I hope you're going to do another book, a third one, so there's a sequel to your series.
Oh, there is 5 in the series.
Awesome.
So the third one is on pregnancy.
Yes.
Yeah. And then there's one on birthing and one on lactation and early foods.
Okay.
So it goes 9 months before, 9 months pregnant.
Yes.
9 months after.
Oh.
It's a really overarching area that we would like to see some sort of continuity of connecting with the same people and having people to guide these new parents through, or parents to be.
What called you to work in this area? Was it through a personal challenge of your own?
What called me to work in this area? Well, I've worked in lactation for a very long time, over 30 years, and nutrition. And I saw the consequences with being called out to babies that was really suffering. And I feel needlessly, I know that there is a big gap in education about breastfeeding. I'm not a Nazi. I'm not saying everybody has to breastfeed, but we need to understand the consequences of not breastfeeding.
Yes.
Or not having access to human milk. If, you can't, for some reason, can't breastfeed yourself, there's only like 3% of women in the world really can't breastfeed, and that's usually because of breast augmentation or, having breasts implanted.
Yes.
They could have cut nerves, all sorts of things. It all depends. Or the reverse, reducing your breast size. And sometimes there's just been a malformation. The breasts haven't developed, but it's such a really, really small minority.
Yeah.
And if we think about all the mammals in the world, and you know, they all nurture their babies, they all feed them themselves, because it's just that continuum from feeding them inside,
yeah,
and it's that extension outside.
quite critical when the baby is born.
Yeah,
All the
it
other
really is
nutritional.
critical. I mean, how long you keep it going for is also another issue.
Yes.
But if people could just, and women could realise and work through the issues that they feel they have, if they've got some, before they have the baby. So during pregnancy, there's quite a bit of education still needed, so that you're prepared. Because whilst it's a seemingly natural process, like many things these days, things have become complicated.
Yeah. So true. Oh, wow. So if you were to talk to a couple right now, or a woman out there who's listening to this podcast and isn't sure whether they want to have a baby, because you said something very interesting in the beginning, that it's not for everyone to parent. Sometimes people feel under a lot of pressure from family, from friends, that after you've reached a certain age in your life, you should have a baby. And if that person felt they didn't want to have a baby and they're feeling under pressure, what advice would you give?
Okay, advice is probably not the right word as such, but it's leading you through a process to probably, hopefully with your partner, to decide what, it's not even to decide, because you've probably already made the decision, but to really speak about what it is that you're feeling. And quite often women don't express what they feel because of this big expectation, you know, this is what my body's supposed to be doing and creating. But it's not something that I want to head down. I've got a bigger calling. You know, there's plenty of children in the world. It's not like we're becoming extinct at the moment. And my sister is a perfect example. She hasn't had children.
Okay.
She chose not to have children, and she always speaks about that quite openly. And her work is her baby, so to speak. So I've worked that through with her at you know, probably 20, 30 years ago. So I guess that also came into being, into the process of what I put into my work. To give you advice is really, there's a process to go through. I can be an intermediary, talking with you and the other people in your life to sort of get them to sort of change their mindset, and have a think about, are they actually putting so much stress on this person?
Without even realizing it too, a lot of the times.
Sorry?
And sometimes without even realizing it.
Oh, definitely. It's all unconscious, most of it. It's not done deliberately. But once that is pointed out that, you know, that this is what's happening, and it can be the same for somebody who wants to get pregnant and they've got this extra stress around them too. And family and friends, all very well-meaning, sometimes are not your best friends at that particular time.
That's so true.
Yeah. And, you know, I've had a couple of different couples that have decided, the woman is the one who's instigated it and said, I don't want to have children, spoken to the father with me there, or not the father that could have been a father, the partner, and he's just gone, oh, thank goodness for that, because I don't either. Why they chose each other in the first place, but they, you know, they didn't realise. So
here to tell the other. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's really about having even conversations like we're having now, that and just going through a few little processes to see if it is really what you would love to do. And, you know, we've got women who are still having babies in their 40s, if you choose to later.
Yes.
My motto is never say never.
Yeah.
may not be the right time for that person.
Yeah. That's
You know.
fascinating. So how can people get hold of you, Sandy?
Well, they can get hold of me by my email, sandy@simplybetterhealth.com.au.
I'll share that to the podcast.
I've said it too fast. Sandy, SANDY, at Simply Better Health. Yeah, .com.au.
Okay.
And they can call me on, it'll be +61 402 051 553. I like to talk to people direct. I'll call you back if you leave a message, if I'm just not available at the time or talking to somebody else. I like to work with people one-on-one if they choose to do that work. But I am heading out into the speaking arena again. I just want to get to more people. I've just been asked to speak at the Women's Economic Forum in India next year.
Awesome.
So I'm putting my feelers out for a few more events to speak at.
It's really good that you're getting yourself out there and making yourself accessible. And now with the advent of the internet, you've got clients not just in Australia, but in Singapore. So if anybody out there is listening, Sandy is accessible and available. I will share all the details of her website and her email with the podcast. But Sandy, thank you so much for coming online this morning and sharing with us. This is a pivotal topic for most women. Bearing of children is a pressure that is put on us by society. Some of us love it, some of us don't, and it's okay either way.
That's right.
Thanks so much, Sandy.
That's all right. Can I just add that I have a website called Pregnant Today?
Okay.
I'll give that to you, and I'll give you those details in the chat.
All the links that you would like to go with the podcast. That would be great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy.
Bye.